Welcome, everybody, to the White Rabbit Podcast. I am Matt Krause, and my co-host is Alpa Rosanes. And it's just the two of us today. There's no guest or anything. Alpa,
I don't think it'll be even two of us. I think it'll be just you.
Yeah,
I'll be here for support.
I'll be doing most of the talking today. And
yeah,
I had something that I wanted to mention, and what brought it up was the other day we did a recording with Major Baycott, and we went into the hard skills versus the soft skills. And I had something that I wanted to mention about that. I wanted to dig into that a little deeper. So that's what brings us here today.
Okay.
And so the title of this podcast is Shooting Ourselves in the Foot. And the main idea is that the way we see measurement causes us to create false categories, soft skills and hard skills. I maintain that these are false categories, as in they are inaccurate ways to describe the world. And as a result of doing this, as a result of seeing measurement incorrectly, and therefore making these false categories, as a result of those things, we leave money on the table. And before I get started, I wanted to mention that this is not the self-serving rant of a presentation trainer. This is not the self-serving rant of someone who makes his living from the training of a soft skill. And the reason I say that is that for 10 years before I was a presentation trainer, I was a purchasing manager, an inventory planner, and a finance analyst. Those are definitely hard skilled jobs. And back then too, I thought that the division of skills into hard and soft skills back then, I thought that this division was BS. And so I wanted to go into that today. I wanted to go into why I think these categories are BS and why I think seeing the world that way is causing us to lose money.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Curious and ready, yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So the main principle that this rests on is the idea that measurement is not about the application of precision. It's about the reduction of uncertainty. And that is very much founded in, or my predilection for seeing the world that way is very much rooted in my background as an inventory planner, which is totally about the reduction of uncertainty, because you're forecasting activity into the future, and therefore you have a huge interest in reducing uncertainty. And along these lines of, this idea, measurement is not about the application of precision. Measurement is about the reduction of uncertainty. There's an excellent book, a book I love, one of my favorite books, called How to Measure Anything by Douglas Hubbard. And one of the main ideas of the book is this, that we humans tend to think of measurement as the application of certainty or the application of precision. Whereas in reality, according to Hubbard, what measurement is a reduction of uncertainty. So Hubbard says that measurement is the reduction of uncertainty. And this guy, Douglas Hubbard, he is also a firmly hard skills kind of guy, insurance and statistics. I think his professional life before he was an author was an actuary for an insurance company. So he also has a very solid background in hard skills. And okay, so let me give you an example of what I mean by this about measurement being a reduction of uncertainty. Let me give you an example of that. Think of a bathroom sink. So, like if that sink is, say, 915.8 centimeters wide, we tend to think, wow, that's really precise, down to the millimeter, or for those of us not familiar with the metric system, 1/10 of a centimeter. So a very small thing. But Douglas Hubbard is saying that in reality, that 915.8 centimeters is not actually the application of precision. It's someone saying, yeah, we got down to that point and decided it was good enough. We could have said 915.81 or 0.82 or 0.83 or 0.84, but we didn't. We said, yeah, this is 915.8. That's good enough. Let's close up and go home. So
to what point could you say that? I mean, 908.112, 125.
Let's say that
you can just add decimals to it.
But so Hubbard's point is that these extra decimals, this extra precision does not matter and the reason he says that is because it might exist, but it doesn't matter because when you are fitting that sink into your bathroom, you don't care if it's 0.82 or 0.81 or 0.83 or 0.84 or 0.84.
As long as it fits.
Yeah, as long as it fits. As long as it's 915.8 something, it's going to fit. So what Hubbard is saying is that measurement is not precision. Measurement is the saying of, yeah, whatever, that's good enough. That's what a measurement is. It's stopping and saying, yeah, whatever, that's good enough. And so you might say, okay, well, that's all well and good. We understand that concept for bathroom sinks now, but let's get closer to soft skills. And so let's try this. Accounting's use of goodwill, which I mentioned briefly in
you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mentioned that with Nigel on the last recording. So first of all, a disclaimer, I'm not an accountant. So I'm the last person who should be teaching anyone about accounting stuff. So take what I say here about goodwill, take it with a huge grain of salt. The important takeaway is the general idea. It's not the details of what I'm about to say about goodwill. Okay, so anyway, when a company acquires another company, that other company, the one that's getting bought, appears on the buying company's balance sheet. And let's say, for example, that the total purchase price was $1 million. And let's say that 400,000 of that $1 million, 400,000 of that was the tangible assets, the hard stuff, basically, the chairs and the tables and the computers and the production equipment and the warehouse racking, the tangible stuff that you can touch. But that leaves $600,000, and that goes on the balance sheet as goodwill. So goodwill is stuff like brand recognition, relationships with customers, stuff like that. The intangible things that make a business worth something, but that are not chairs or tables. So in other words, you've assigned a hard value right there on the balance sheet. So you've got all the hard stuff the hard skill stuff that any hard skill lover would love, hard skill stuff like accounting and math and financial statements. You have all of these things, and you're using it to measure something that is really intangible, like, brand recognition. So it's really intangible and soft and hard to measure. So goodwill, I like to use goodwill as an example because it shows us that sometimes something that appears to be hard and measurable, like accounting, rules, money, financial statements, sometimes things that appear to be really hard skills are actually being used to measure something that is, without a doubt, soft. And we're doing this all day long, every day, applying measurement to things that are actually quite soft. So in other words, there's a whole lot of stuff in that hard skills bucket that isn't inherently hard. It's just there because someone at some point said that it could be measured. And so, hey, let's put it in the soft skills bucket. This division between soft skills and hard skills, it's not like God issued a list that said this is soft and this is hard. It's not like that at all. Okay, so let me give one more example of how measurement can be used, and then I'll get into why this matters, why this is, causing us to leave money on the table. Okay, so one more example of how measurement can be used. And the reason that I give this example is because it is, in fact, used, subconsciously, whether we know it or not. Well, I guess that's the definition of subconsciously. It's used all the time on a daily basis in ways that are really imprecise. Because remember, measurement is not about precision. It's about the reduction of uncertainty. And this example is about how you are already using measurement in really imprecise ways. So don't get freaked out by this concept of imprecision. You're already doing this, even if you don't want to admit it. You're already doing it. So here's the example. Okay, so you've got this deal that you're working on, and it's worth $100 million, and you want to close it. And you know that presentation skills are an important part of being able to close this deal, but you don't know how much. You don't know how much. So, maybe they make up, say 5% of the skill set you need. Maybe they make up 40% of the skill set you need. So you've got this huge range, 5% on the low end, 40% on the high end, this huge range, a lot of imprecision in there. And let's go with the conservative number, 5%. So presentation skills in this example make up 5% of the skill set needed to close this deal. So, and 5% of 100 million is $5 million. So you have a skill, presentations, and that skill is worth $5 million. So you go out shopping and you find a presentation trainer you like who can do the job, and he charges $100,000. By the way, I think it would be great to make $100,000 for a job as a presentation trainer. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So this example is kind of a dream world example. Okay. But anyway, so this presentation trainer, he can do the job and he charges $100,000. So you pay $100,000 to get a skill that's worth $5 million. So boom, because you made a measurement, however imprecise, remember, you were just picking a number out of this range between 5% and 40%. Yeah. So it was hugely imprecise. But because you made that measurement, you were able to make a decision by the presentation training. Compare that to a situation, or compare that to the situation that you would be in if you just said, I don't like this imprecision. So you don't do any measurement at all. So what do you do in that case? You go home and you worry about the decision and you don't know what to do. And in the end, since you were just shooting in the dark entirely, maybe you hire some completely unqualified 25-year-old kid for $1,000. And, and so your employee...
Are you sure you would do that for $100 million deal?
Pardon me?
Are you sure you would do that for $100 million deal?
Believe it or not, I've seen worse. Okay. So your employee in that case is going to end up walking away angry at you for wasting his time, all because you backed off of making a measurement, however imprecise. And so you had no choice but to toss this skill into the deprioritized soft skills bucket and hire someone on the cheap. So to either beat a dead horse, or in more diplomatic speech, to put a finer point on it, you
Really?
to beat a dead horse.
What kind of diplomacy are we talking about?
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll go with the less diplomatic one, to beat a dead horse.
No,
So,
I like the diplomatic one. Let's put a finer point on
a
it.
finer point on it. So to
Speaking of which, this sounds like horse crap, but okay.
Okay, so to put a finer point on it, so you're assigning a measurement no matter what you do.
Yeah.
You can insist until your dying breath, that presentations are a soft skill and cannot be measured, but you are, in fact, whether you hire that $1,000 kid or that $100,000 person or whatever you do, you're assigning a measurement to it, even if you don't want to admit that you are. And again, the reason that I'm mentioning these things is to point out that in reality, we are applying measurement to these soft skill things. It's just that we're not admitting to ourselves that we're applying measurement to these soft skill things. And if we're already doing it, why don't we just admit we're doing it so we can just get it over with and move a whole lot of stuff over to the hard skill bucket where we can openly measure things and get better at it. And here you can see my background as an inventory planner, which is entirely about assigning numbers in an uncertain environment. So that range, 5% to 40%, that's an uncertain environment. But so you can see the inventory planner in me coming out and saying, hey, this is uncertain, but we got to apply a number anyway. And we're going to apply a number whether we like it or not. Okay, so the second point is, Upper, you know that saying, what gets measured gets managed. Have you heard that saying?
Yep.
What gets measured gets managed. It's also known as, or sometimes people say it as, what gets measured.
You cannot manage something you cannot measure.
Yeah, you cannot manage something you cannot measure. Some people say, what gets measured gets improved. There's like a gazillion ways of saying it. So for whatever reason, and I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, humans tend to focus on the things that get measured. Like items on your CEO's dashboard, for example, sales, profits, hours of Excel training, whatever appears on that dashboard. That's what's going to get the CEO's attention. The rest of the stuff tends to get deprioritized or ignored completely. Remember, soft skills are things that cannot be measured, or more correctly, that we do not currently know how to measure or that we are not willing to measure. So by definition, soft skills don't show up on that dashboard, even though...
You can see me making a mental note to come back to that phrase, soft skills cannot be measured. So let's make a note of that, mental note, and we'll circle back to that.
Okay. So think back to our Goodwill example and how $600,000 of that $1 million purchase price was for intangibles. $600,000. That's a big chunk of money. That's definitely something you would want to manage. Before measurement, it was firmly in the immeasurable bucket, the soft skills bucket. And you could not make decisions about it. So you've got this big chunk of money, but you can't make decisions about it. But with measurement, however imprecise the measurement is, at least you know more than you used to, and you're able to make more intelligent decisions about it. And remember, your measurement is imprecise. Yes. Definitely. There's a whole lot about that Goodwill stuff or presentation skills or empathy or all that other soft skill stuff. There's a whole lot about that stuff that you absolutely cannot quantify, but at least you're quantifying something. And that is helping you make a more informed decision than if you were quantifying nothing. Okay. So when we toss something into the soft skills bucket, we signal that we're giving up on measuring it, and we subsequently deprioritize it. And so we end up prioritizing or focusing on the commodities that everyone else already has. Think back to our Goodwill example.
Mm-hmm.
We end up focusing on the things that we can measure, like chairs, instead of the real things that are bringing us value. Brand recognition is probably not going to appear on the CEO's dashboard. Maybe not chairs either, but something else measurable. And so the question is, well, so what? I mean, that's all nice, Matt. You and your mom should be proud. You can, rattle on for 20 minutes about this thing, but, so what? What can we do? And what does this have to do with presentations? First of all, what can you do? Relieve the pressure of trying to be precise. Don't think that you can hear something new on a Tuesday and then be a perfect person on a Wednesday. So just relieve the pressure of trying to be precise. Take the pressure off. So start slow. Look around you, look at all the things that are measured, start carrying a ruler with you so you can measure stuff if you don't know, what the measurements are. And then every time you see a measurement, see the range of uncertainty that exists around it. Is that thing and, all the other things in that stack of things that look very much like it. Is that thing 2.5 centimeters wide? Cool. So recognize that somewhere along the way, someone decided that 2.5 centimeters was good enough. And we didn't need to go one more decimal place to 2.51 or 2.54, something like that. We didn't need to go further in the precision department. That was good enough. So keep doing that with stuff. And within a few days, you'll probably start to realize that all measurements, all of them, are basically someone walking away and saying, yeah, that's good enough. Now, about what this has to do with presentations. And that is, stop thinking about presentation skills as a soft skill. Assign a number to them so you can measure them like any other hard skill in your skills bucket. Remember that the number that you assign to them does not have to be precise. An imprecise number is almost always better than nothing. If you work for a company, like if you're the CEO or if you're a department manager or if you work in HR or something like that, assign presentation skills a number. Use your own formula or base your formula on something I mentioned earlier, like the calculations I made a few minutes ago in the example of the $100 million deal. Or if you're doing this for your own personal use, like, what would presentation skills be worth to my future career earnings? Take presentation skills as a rough percent of the skill set that you would need for a promotion and leverage that into how much money a promotion would mean to you over the rest of your career. So above all, remember that an imprecise number is almost always better than no number at all. Okay, so that's the end of my rant. Do you have questions for me, Alper?
Not a question, but something that I wanted to circle back and get your opinion on it.
Okay.
Because you said soft skills cannot be measured, right?
Yes.
I also agree that they... Go ahead.
We like to think that soft skills cannot be measured.
Okay.
So pretty close to what you said, just slightly different.
Okay. I also think that a lot of people believe that they cannot be measured. And okay. I also believe they cannot be measured. But there comes a moment when you realize, okay, I'm not going to use F word, but the F word, and you're like, I wish I had this skill because I have this thing on Monday and it's already Saturday, 11 p.m.
Okay.
So you have less than 48 hours to brush up your soft skills, which is, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to not to distinguish, but to appreciate the reality that the soft skills can be put always onto the second tier or second priority.
Okay.
Until they are not.
Yeah.
And I have seen that happen hundreds of times over the course of my career. And you have seen that a lot of times. So I literally tell people not to wait until the last moment.
Yeah.
Of course, most of them don't listen. I mean, I also don't listen when people tell me, hey, about this, don't wait until the last moment. No, I don't. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? And then I realize, insert F word, it is really bad. So yes, soft skills may be difficult to measure, but I think when you realize that you need them, they take a super priority that no hard skill may ever have gotten in your life. So I think it's a point to be careful about and to pay attention to.
And those hard skills, whatever your presentation is, like if you're presenting in a sales process where, you're presenting and your competitors are also presenting, those hard skills that you mentioned, those are kind of commodities. Like no one is going to be in that room if they don't have those hard skills. Like if you're a bridge engineer, no one's going to be in that room unless they are a bridge engineer. So it's like, congratulations on having that having that hard skill. You now have a commodity that everyone else has. And yet somehow hard skills, they get worshipped and measured.
I'm trying to remember if I did a rant about this several months ago with you by myself on my journal, but it went something like, I think it was a rainy day. I think there was a lot of barometric pressure. And I was like, one of those days that you wake up pissed off and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, of course.
I think it was one of those days when I read something or somebody says something about, speaking well, it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, wait, man. And again, I have seen this hundreds of times. Speaking well is not that big of a deal until you realize that it is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's why I encourage people not to wait until the last moment.
Yeah, and that realization, like you mentioned before, that realization that speaking is a really important skill. I wish I had it. Tends to not show up until the last 24 hours.
Until the last moment. Yeah.
I can think as a presentation trainer, I can think of gazillion times over the years when somebody has called me in 24 hours before the presentation and thought that I was going to work some magic. Oh man. And there's nothing you can do on that timeline with 24 hours left.
And what's worse is when you realize that you need it during the presentation.
That is even worse. Yeah, absolutely.
Or even after, like, all is done. I mean, what's done is done. So you cannot go back. You cannot switch back time. So better luck next time, you have to tell yourself. But I think even worse than realizing that you need it 24 hours before the presentation is like during the presentation.
Yeah. During the presentation to be thinking, wow, this is not going well. I wish I had spent the last couple years working on my presentation skills. Having that thought occur to you during the presentation, that would be a disastrous thought.
Yeah. And it happens.
And it happens. Oh, yeah, it happens. It happens over and over. We've been seeing that for a long time.
I can make it worse, by the way. Not that this is not bad enough. I mean, I think it would get even worse if your manager tells you that. Or
if your manager, pretty much anybody, comes up to you afterwards and says, wow, that really sucked.
Of course, they wouldn't say it like that, but they would maybe mention that you have room for improvement or something like that.
There's room for improvement. Or or if they like try to make it sound really good and say, "Oh, that was pretty good, but there's definitely room for improvement." Yeah, that sounds pretty good, and then oh man, that hurts just hearing it.
So I hope people will heed your advice and take action in that direction.
Yeah, as soft skills, and there are, like I mentioned earlier, there are a gazillion things that are currently in the hard skill bucket, and at one point they were not in the hard skill bucket. They were in the soft skill bucket. So moving stuff from the soft skill bucket to the hard skill bucket, it's not new, and it's not like, God came down from on high, or Moses or whatever, and issued 10 commandments and said, here written on stone, or what is hard and what is soft. That didn't happen. So nobody's going to strike you down with lightning because you take something that is currently in the soft skills bucket, try to apply a number to it, and call it a hard skill. You won't be the first person in history to do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe there was an 11th commandment, thou shalt speak well, or something like that.
Yeah, that one got, I don't know, maybe it broke off the tablet, or it got scratched off or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe Moses was like, man, this is too good. I'm going to keep this for myself.
Yeah. Maybe he was like, this is too good. Or maybe he was like, brevity is the source of wit. So instead of having 11 commandments, I'm only going to have 10. Maybe the 10 commandments was a management decision by Moses.
Yeah, but be careful revising God's work. I mean, you never know what you're going to end up with.
That's true. Okay, so on that note, before we go off onto Moses and God,
before we get struck down upon the
before we get struck down by lightning, and who knows where this conversation is going to go. Why are there suddenly clouds on the horizon? Okay, so before we get struck down by lightning, we should probably, for our own safety, we should probably wrap it up here. So thanks for listening to my monologue, and so Alper and I will talk to you later.
Take care. See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.